welcome. It's Leanne Scott here from the Chirp podcast. Today we have got Alexis from Dovetail Community, and I'm so excited to speak to you, Alexis, because I know that you're all about community and building the tribe around you. And I know that our startup founders that we speak to should be building communities around their products and services. So I can't wait to hear more about how you do it and some top tips. So let's start off with, please tell us who you are and where you come from, and just a little bit so we can get to know who you are.
Thank you so much, Leanne. It's so nice to be here. So I'm Alexis Dean. I am a community building expert, a professional speaker and facilitator, and the founder of the Dovetail Community for established women entrepreneurs. I am currently located just about 3 hours outside of Toronto, but I live between this area and Toronto, and I'm lucky enough to get to travel quite a bit. So you can find me working remotely from the road and from planes, trains, and automobiles sometimes.
Yeah, I've seen some of your posts. So I'm always fascinated how you keep the work going whilst you're traveling. Do you find that a bit of a challenge, or does it just second nature by now?
I've been doing it for quite a while. I've been in business for 10 years. And then before that, I actually lived all over the world and had a really hectic travel schedule when I was in consulting and education. So I got quite used to it, and getting up early and carving out work hours early in the morning, and then being able to work, put on my headphones and work from the front seat of the car, from the train, from the plane, from the lounge, wherever I had to get it done. So it takes a bit of getting used to, but it's definitely doable.
Brilliant. And tell me, we want to talk a lot about Dovetail today, but just as a starting point, you said that you still run a company out in Toronto. Tell us a bit more about that company and what it does.
So 10 years ago, I started a corporate team building and training business, and it's called Two Roads Team Building and Training. You can find us at tworoadsteambuilding.com. And I started that because of a need in the market. We serve typically large corporations, the big telecom companies in Canada and the US, and then major banks, bringing their teams in-house together through trainings and through team building events and retreats.
Amazing. So that must really lead into what you're doing with Dovetail and building that community. I think you're going to tell us a little bit more about your summit that's coming up. But before we get to that, because obviously you've said it's for women entrepreneurs, and it's about the community, but tell us a bit more about what your ethos is and how that all comes together.
I have been obsessed with community building since I was a kid. I'm Canadian, and I went to summer camp growing up, and that really kicked off my love for building deep connections and building community with my peers, to learn from each other and to support one another, and just to have a group of really good friends in my corner. And as I grew into a business owner, launching the team building company 10 years ago, I just had my head down, focused on work, and I built my own team in-house. But as with entrepreneurs, it's one thing to be able to open up, pull back the curtain, and share some of the information with your team, but you really can't go to your employees and say, oh my gosh, like payroll next month might be a stretch, or I'm considering a partnership or a merge or this opportunity, or I'm considering leaving for 2 weeks to go and speak on the West Coast. Because if you say all these things or you share these opportunities, you might just scare the heck out of them. So I realized I really just needed other women around me, and women business owners. And I specifically just wanted a group of peers who were a few steps ahead of me. And I didn't know how to get that. I kept going to events and going to networking. No one loves networking. Okay, maybe very few people love traditional networking because it's so transactional. And so I thought I'd like to do a weekend. I would love to just sit around and have a cup of tea or a glass of wine by the fire and connect with these other female business owners and learn from them and share what I've been doing with them so we could all learn from each other. And that was when I started Dovetail. I thought I'd have a dozen ladies come, and we ended up with 50 at our first weekend event. So there was clearly a need, and others were clearly feeling the same way as I was.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been in business myself for probably 20 odd years, and I've tried all kinds of networking, chambers of commerce, BNI, all of those kind of traditional in-person networking, and they tended to be very male dominated. And I hate to say this, but all older women who are very masculine in their energy and their approach because they've had to work in that environment. And being an entrepreneur can be incredibly lonely, and that journey. So then I thought I'll find friends with mums at school, but that's a completely different environment as well, because the mums tended to be housewives and we just couldn't relate. So I have found it to be an incredibly lonely journey, which is why I'm fascinated by the community that you're building at Dovetail. And I'd love to know more, what makes Dovetail different to this traditional business community?
Yes, I've done some time in BNI. I hate to say done some time, but it felt a little bit like that. We really eschew anything that smells like typical networking. We have a firm no pitch policy, which means that when people come to our retreats and our events, our gatherings, or when they join in the membership, we really don't pitch at each other. That's not the way to build a deeper relationship. We encourage our ladies to connect with one another, to learn about each other, to support each other in business, and we encourage them to work together, but not from the sense of this transactional dynamic where I refer you and you refer me and you have to refer 10 people in this group. And that's been my experience with the typical networking groups is like, you must give 5 referrals a month. And so people aren't making those referrals from a sense of pride of this friend that they've connected with, or getting to really deeply know someone and being closer to what they're building and feeling that sense of, oh my gosh, I can't wait to connect you with people because I just love what you've built. They're doing it out of obligation. So that's a really big and important difference when you look at a network versus a community. It's not transactional in a community. It is deeply connected and communal. And at Dovetail, we host an annual summit, which you mentioned at the beginning. And that's where we bring together, depending on our venue, this year we have space for about 40 women. We bring together 40 women from across the world, all established entrepreneurs. We don't have stages. No one is in a special VIP room. Everyone stays in a beautiful private lodge all together. It's just us, just our group. And it is really based around high-level peer-to-peer experience. So our peer-to-peer knowledge sharing sessions, hot seats, roundtables, masterminding, and real connection building. And it's the really beautiful kickoff point to relationships that last a lifetime and supporting one another in business for the long term.
Absolutely. I think I'm going to have to put my application in. So I'm thinking you've created this beautiful community and it's intimate. However, where companies are going, there's so much AI, there's so much content put out there. And from our point of view at Chirp, what we believe is that you have to be authentic in who you are and how you present yourself. Yes, you can use AI tools, but you still have to build this sense of tribe, community around you as a business. What are your thoughts on companies building a community versus companies selling products?
I think that this gets so confused so often. So I'm really glad that you asked, because a lot of times people will use the term community and what they mean is audience. And those are not the same thing. An audience is one directional. It is a talking head at the front of the room, or a talking head leading a group, the head of a company, or even a company using its social media or using its power presence, stage time, whatever, to just speak one way to an audience. Whereas the audience is not connecting with each other and supporting each other. And that's the difference of a community. If you're building community around your business, you're finding ways for those audience members, or those former audience members, to connect with each other and support each other. You're building a two-way, at least, conversation so that it's not just omnidirectional. And it's really a deeper connection and an actual caring about and for the people that you're working with and the people that you're serving with your product or your services.
Okay, so if I were, so I tend to work with a lot of startup founders. So they're just starting out, and one of the biggest fears they have is nobody wants to hear what I've got to say. So I've always got to say, there's more people who want to hear from you than don't. How would you recommend, or do you have some top tips on how a startup founder would get started building a community around their passion, their big why? What are your thoughts on that?
I have a quote that I encourage every founder to put on their laptop, like next to them on a Post-it, to put on their fridge, to put on their office wall. And it's really simple, but it is a really helpful starting place, whether you're considering showing up on social or anywhere else and building a community in and around your business. And the quote is, and you can even write it down if you're listening right now. It's, do you see me? Do you hear me? And does what I have to say mean anything to you? Do you see me? Do you hear me? And does what I have to say mean anything to you? It is the starting point for making sure that your community that you're trying to build isn't just about you, that you are not the guru at the front of the room, that you are showing the people that you want to serve, that you want to work with, that you are listening to them, that you see them, that what they need and what they want matters to you. It's a really good jumping off point for anything that you're sharing. And it just helps you recognize that so many of us are afraid to get on stage or be public with our message and our mission because we're like, oh, what are they going to think of me? But if they know that you're thinking of them first, they will feel it and they'll want to come back and they'll want to connect with you. And you'll have an easier time of reaching out and connecting with them as well.
Okay. So for me, I always say very similarly that you've got to share who you are. And the best way to do that is through video, because people get to really get a sense of who you are, your body language. Even if they're not actually listening to the video, they're reading the captions and they're watching you. So I think that marries quite nicely. But if we look practically, I think sometimes people worry about just putting content out there. How do you build that community around you?
I would start, again, because you want to show them that you see them, that you hear them. I would start by asking questions, finding out, and if you're really early stage, you're probably doing all sorts of informational interviews. So literally using quotes from those informational interviews or those conversations you're having with prospective clients to find out what they're talking about, what their needs are, what their questions are, and then answer those in your content. So if you get on a call with a prospective client and they're saying, oh, it's a project management software as an example. We've really struggled with getting our team to actually use the project management software every day. And they're not adapting to it or adopting it fully. And they're still writing on their notebooks and we can't track any of the projects. But then when you get on stage or when you get on video, when you're speaking to them, you're actually responding to them. In a recent conversation with Leanne, we were talking about how to adopt the new project management software, our project management software that she's using. And here's some ways that we've seen our other clients do it well. And here's some of our recommendations. Immediately, Leanne, who had that query or that challenge, is going to feel seen. She's going to feel heard. She's going to be like, oh my gosh, like this is a company that actually cares about its users, cares about its clients. So I think that bringing the voices forward of the people within your community, within your current audience that you want to evolve into a community is a really fast and easy way to make them feel heard and recognized. That it's not just you saying, this is what you have to hear. It's you saying, I'm listening to you. I hear you. I see you. I understand your needs. And we can really connect in this way. Does that help?
Yeah, absolutely. I like that. I think that's really good. Awesome. So tell me a little bit more about Dovetail. So you've got your summit coming up. Beyond the summit, what else do you do for your community?
I'm really excited because we're about to launch our 2024 membership. So every year we have a membership that folks can join, and typically we open it after our summit event so that those who've been part of summit can join the membership for the following year. But we also have lots of ladies who couldn't make it to summit this year for whatever reason or don't hear about us until after summit. So we open up our membership and we have a limited number of spots in membership because it is a community. Our goal is not to grow to thousands and thousands of people. It's actually, for next year, we'll probably be around 75. And we try to balance out industries, so where people are coming from, their locations in the world, but also what industry they're serving and where they are in their business. So next year, we're evolving into bringing in a group of women who are in the growth and scale stage of business, so not necessarily at the 1 million mark as far as their annual revenue in their business. And then also our summit ladies, who are all typically mid 7 figures all the way up to 9-figure businesses. So it'll be a really beautiful connection. They'll each have their own space and their own programming. And then at the end of the year, we'll all come together like we have in the past for our annual camp event. So stay tuned for that. It's going live on our site in the next couple of weeks, and we will be officially opening up after our summit in October.
Amazing. And tell me, you're just building this beautiful community around you. What are your biggest challenges when it comes to building community, or when you started building community? Has it been a scary experience, or has it gone is serendipitous in the way you approach it?
So I started Dovetail 5 years ago, and I mean, we had COVID for 2 years in there at least, and Canada really shut down, and we have a good number of Canadians. We're at about 70% Canadian right now. And so when our country shut down and we couldn't travel and you couldn't gather, and it was like really intense, as I know it was in much of Europe as well, we really had to move things online, and that was its own challenge. And yet it's also been a gift because it enabled us to open up to women from across the continent, from South America, from Europe, because we have this online connection. So I try to look at every challenge that we've had as an opportunity to learn more about what the women need, and to serve them in unique ways. I would say for anyone who's looking at building community for themselves or in and around your business, when I started, I had people say, I had some people, like I had 50 women who are super keen. I also had people say, good luck. Or I was talking a lot about non-hierarchy, and especially with our established women business owners, I didn't want there to be like you're a special speaker at this event and you're a VIP and everyone else is below you in some way, or that there was this hierarchical relationship. And so I asked people who were within the community to share, to lead the roundtables, lead the discussions. And we didn't have PowerPoints, we didn't have fancy stages and fancy AV. And when I talked to some people about coming and sharing and connecting, they were like, good luck. I'm not coming to anything like that unless you pay me. Because a lot of women who are established are used to being paid quite a bit. And I was saying, I'm not asking you to come just as a speaker. I'm asking you to come because I know that as someone who is asked to speak, that as someone who runs a big company, you probably have a hard time finding peers who are at that level of experience. And this is a place where you will find peership. And some people just laugh me out of the room. I'm not doing that. Good luck and whatever. This isn't for me. And ironically, a few years later, I had those same women coming back saying, I've heard really good things about Dovetail, and I have 5 friends that came to your last summit, and how do I get involved at your next summit? Yeah, I think it's just like sticking with it and knowing what you really want to build, and knowing the values and the morals that you want to adhere to as a community leader, and sticking with that. And just, I knew that I really valued non-hierarchy within our communities, and I valued creating that sacred space for women, specifically at a certain level of experience, but each of the groups has their own special hub. And I really wanted to maintain that and not have VIPs and all that sort of thing. And I stuck with it. And 5 years on, we've got an incredible group of women that support each other. And we're expanding next year into serving the growth and scale ladies, women who are maybe more in the messy middle of entrepreneurship. And I'm so excited about it.
Oh, that's amazing. I think all of us as entrepreneurs go through that stage where we have a vision and there are the doubters around us. And I think that you have to have a really strong vision, a strong sense of self to stick through it. How do you find that you manage that, your mindset through that process of, am I on the right path? Or do you have a hard time kind of silencing the doubters in your head?
I would be lying if I said that there weren't any moments where I struggled with doubt or imposter syndrome or any of the things that unfortunately, that women are so often socially programmed for. And there are women in my community who have a multi-million-dollar a year revenue and a big business, and they've written a book and they're on stages and they're winning awards, and they still struggle with these things. So it helps to know that I am not alone, and that when I hear those little voices, the little demon on my shoulder saying, oh my gosh, what are you doing? This is ridiculous. Or, oh, so-and-so said this about what you were building. I'm not immune to those things, but I know that I'm not alone in it. And I know that what I want to build is something beautiful, and that what I have built is something beautiful. And so that always helps too. So I'll go back, and I have a whole notes folder in my phone of testimonials, just written screenshots from women that have been part of our gatherings and our events and our membership. And sometimes I just need to go back and remind myself that this is worth it and that I can continue. And especially when COVID hit and we had all these events planned, we had rented a private island in the Bahamas. Oh, wow. I was like, oh, I'm going to lose my house and maybe I should just quit this. And way back when I was a school teacher and I was like, maybe I should just go back to teaching. Like, what am I doing? I just calmed myself down, went out hiking because that was safe to do during COVID, and read those testimonials and got on the phone with the women in my community and said, how can I show up for you? How can I serve you as we're going through this? What do you need? And that was pretty much the way forward, just always putting them at the forefront. What do they need? How can I serve them? How can I make them feel seen and heard and loved and valued? Going back to that quote.
Absolutely. So I suspect that's part of the secret sauce of Dovetail, is that it's a no pitch event. So the pressure is off to actually be yourself, to share your vulnerability with this closed community of women. And I think that must be a really special energy at each of your events.
Yeah.
And so snuck in a little thing there that we didn't know about you. You were a school teacher. Tell us about your journey.
Oh my goodness. Way back when, I went to school for education and went to uni, did a postgrad, and I first did primary junior level teaching in experiential education. And then I went back and did a postgrad in adult training and development. So I did teach. I taught year 2, 3, and 4. I actually taught in the UK as well. And then I taught for a group of international schools. We opened a new school and I created an international exchange program and a summer camp program with the group of schools. So they were all running on the summer camp program. And so then I ended up working with the educators. And so doing that adult training, which I'd gone to school for, and I evolved into training teachers, then got hired into corporate training. And that was the evolution of working as a consultant and trainer and facilitator all over the world. And eventually I hit burnout and moved back to Canada and started a corporate training company so that I didn't have to be on a plane every few days.
Amazing. I imagine that education aspect plays a really positive role in helping you put together these amazing events for women. I have noticed that you have upped your content game on social media. Tell me a little bit more about why you've done it and how you're finding dealing with putting yourself out there more often.
I know this is what your Chirpit users are definitely interested in. And I so love what you've built. I've checked it all out and I think it's remarkable. And I do think it's important, especially for women business owners, not just, entrepreneurs at large, but I think it's important to be the face of your company, to show up for your people. I think that oftentimes we overlook ourselves before anyone else overlooks us. And it's scary to get out there and it's scary to position yourself as a thought leader. But if you're running a business, you have some kind of unique expertise and you can serve the world by sharing it. So I have had quite the pep talk from our coach and just this peer support, which has also been incredible from the women in my community and the women in our coaching group and the men and folks in our coaching group as well. But that's really helped, just the motivation to share what I've learned. I've been building communities for, I hate to date myself here, but like more than 20 years. And there's just been so much knowledge and that I have acquired that I'm excited to share with people. And not only for those women that are looking to join Dovetail and become community members, but for folks who are considering building community in and around their business, building community of their own staff, building community of their audience, of their clients. And yeah, I know that I've got something to share and it's important and valuable. So I just keep showing up. Even though it scares me, even though sometimes I just want to delete, just hands off, put it up there. And if you're feeling tempted to delete it, just delete the Instagram app from your phone for a little bit and don't touch it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think for us, what we find with most clients and myself included, absolutely, is that you've got to have somebody else to post it. Don't even look at it, just do it and post it, because I think none of us like to see ourselves on video, but if you're too worried about that, you stop sharing who you are authentically. I've loved watching your videos, so don't ever delete them. They're absolutely fabulous.
Thank you. That means a lot. And I know, and we were talking about this actually off camera, jokingly saying, I can't wait to have some trolls because then it means you've really done something well. But I've not dealt with people trolling on my videos before. And I know that's a whole other thing. So I do totally agree that working with Chirpit or another organization like yours, mostly just yours, will help people, because then you're not sat there focused on whatever people are writing back to you immediately and not overanalyzing it or getting tempted to delete. Because if you've worked with Chirpit, you don't want to go and delete the hard work that you've put in and that you've paid for, you've invested in. So that would definitely be a motivation to help move forward and stay strong and in showing up for your audience and hopefully for your community as well.
Amazing. Thank you for that. I appreciate it. So in terms of consistency, how have you found that being more consistent with your social media has impacted your business overall?
This has been a very big experiment in the last few months, but you can follow me at alexis.dovetail and see what I'm doing, because it's been a fun experiment. So I have shown up pretty much every day for the last couple of months, at least every weekday. Usually I skip Sundays. I try to turn off my phone for a lot of the day on Sunday, but I just share what I'm doing that day. And it holds me accountable to having to do those things. And one of the things is 5 opens. So I try to start 5 conversations, or in my case, I was starting at least 5 a day, and I had just too many open conversations, and it was like causing a bit of mayhem. So I engage in 5 conversations online every day. And sometimes that's just like following on with the conversation started the previous day. Because unlike some of our friends, like my people who are following me on social aren't necessarily on the app all the time to carry on a conversation after the first couple of like back and forths. So I just have I'll reconnect with at least 5 people a day. And that's really helpful. So between showing up consistently, even with that daily story of what I'm doing behind the scenes that day, and I usually try to make it on a funny picture or something that's engaging, and then showing up in stories, showing the behind the scenes of community building, sharing a reel I post, and then consistently posting those reels like I know you can do with Turbot. It's actually helped a lot. And I've got a couple of women coming to Summit who wouldn't have otherwise heard of Dovetail, which is really cool.
Yeah, that's cool. It's nice to see it working and feel like it's working, isn't it? Brilliant. So I'm fascinated with everything that you're doing, and I've loved hearing about your experience building community, who you are and who you've evolved into. And I think that any women who are looking for a community to really connect with and find their peer group where they can be themselves authentically should definitely give you a call. So how would somebody apply to join your summit this year?
Yeah, so if you're an established woman entrepreneur, you identify as a woman, and you're interested in joining us, we have a private lodge in Maine, an incredible group of women joining us from across the continent, and like I said, a couple from Europe. And you can just follow me at alexis.dovetail. The links are in my bio. You can learn a bit more by watching. Actually, we were just talking about this, that we're going to put out a little bit more content about what exactly Summit is, because historically I've been a little bit quiet about promoting it because we've just grown through referral, and this year as we expand, I'm sharing a little bit more. So you can follow along there, check out the links in bio, or send me a note because I'd love to chat. And if you follow along there, I'll probably start a conversation with you.
As part of your daily opens. Amazing. Exactly. Amazing. Thank you so much, Alexis. I have absolutely loved chatting to you. I will be putting my application in, and I look forward to watching your journey further. And hopefully we'll have you on after your summit to hear how it went. So thank you everyone for joining us today on the Chirp podcast. My guest today is Alexis from Dovetail Community. And remember, don't post it, you can chirp it.